Welcome to EnVision Center News, where we discuss community impact and involvement with today's nonprofit leaders and philanthropists.
Hi, Eric.
Hi.
Thanks for coming to the EnVision podcast. We are excited to interview you as the founder of PrepComm. And you're located in our center right here.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't actually gotten a chance to talk with you very much, so this is fun. We wanted to just kind of start off with, I wanted you to tell us a little bit about yourself and about what inspired you to start PrepComm.
Okay. Well, my background is, of course, a lot of technology. I've been involved in, 3 or 4 startups, some of which I started, some of which I got roped into being part of a startup, usually as chief engineer or chief technology officer or something like that. All the way back from the first one was in the 70s, actually, a long time ago. Yes, I'm old. That was the 1970s. Anyway, I've done a lot of work. The most formative years really was at Apple Computer. It was called Apple Computer at one point. They changed the name to Apple, but it used to be Apple Computer, and I spent 9 years there. It was a really excellent experience. That's where I got involved in learning how to do patents, and I did a whole bunch of patents for Apple. And for companies that actually rolled out of Apple for quite a number of years. In fact, I was still doing patent work up until I've even got a request right now from a legal firm to come and help them defend against a patent attack. So
Big stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. I get sick of it. And after the first 3 or 4 patents, the rest of them is like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it is fun. But I've been involved in a lot of technology development, including doing online education system and just a lot of stuff. But I did a lot of stuff in digital camera technology and helped develop and invent that whole thing that ended up in an iPhone.
Really?
Anyway, that's enough about that. It's a lot of technology. I was always my interest. Right from high school.
The tech world.
The tech world, yeah. So when I moved here in 2013, and I got involved in the prepper community, and one of the things I noticed was they all were carrying around these little handheld walkie-talkies, and that was their emergency radios. And I thought to myself, well, wait a minute, what if you had an emergency, would they actually work? That was the question. They weren't asking that question. I don't know why. Because what they did was they would connect to a mountaintop repeater, which would repeat their transmission, and you could cover a fairly good distance that way. And during a normal day, you might only have might have a lot of quiet time between people using it, right? Even though there might be 1,000 or 2,000 people in the area, or maybe more, that have one of those walkie-talkies, how much time do they spend actually using it during the day? It's pretty small. So it's like it's a one-line telephone company.
Well,
think of it like that.
Interesting, because I have a bunch of kids, and one of their toys, obviously, was being able to talk to each other across the yard or across the house on a walkie-talkie.
Right.
And then sometimes there would be other people talking through the walkie-talkie, and I'm like, who is that?
Right. Well, see, on typical walkie-talkie, you have multiple channels. On these kind of machines, you have different frequencies, but the repeater is only on one.
Okay.
And so it's literally like a one-line phone company. You can talk to somebody, but if one person is talking to somebody, because everybody that has one can hear what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's not a private conversation, but it's one person, one conversation. If you have 2 people that want to use it to talk 2 different ways, forget it.
Yeah.
When it's being used. So if you have an emergency, like we had with the Sagal fire, 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah.
They were counting on that actually for helping with an emergency situation. Of course, it immediately got jammed with like 500 people trying to get on it. People that had fire threatening their houses, trying to scream into the microphone to get on it, couldn't get on it. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah.
So the problem is people don't. I don't know why this is, but people do not think through what to do about an emergency. What would actually happen?
Yeah.
What would actually happen if the power failed? What would actually happen if there was a big ice storm and the
Yeah.
power failed? So you had no power. The cell phone towers went down. You had no communication. The internet's down. The phone lines are down. It's icy. You can't get out of the driveway because of ice. What happens? Well,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Well, that's kind of what we wanted to talk about with recent happenings, the flooding in Texas. And it's having everybody around the country start to think about what would we do in the case of a disaster or an emergency.
Right.
Yeah, and so backing up a little bit, for those people who are not familiar, what does PrepComm itself do? And can you explain to us what amateur radio is?
Sure. Well, to finish the story about why we got started,
Yeah.
there was a couple of reasons why they were using walkie-talkies, besides not thinking about it.
Yeah.
One of them was that they couldn't use the frequencies that would allow them to talk
Yeah.
over the mountains.
Yeah.
Okay? We call that HF, or high frequency. They couldn't use that unless they learned Morse code.
Okay.
They had to learn Morse code. They didn't actually have to learn Morse code to get the license, but to use those particular frequencies, that band, which is starts from the AM broadcast band all the way up to about 30 megahertz. That band is the only band that reflects off the atmosphere, the upper atmosphere. It
Okay.
comes back down and bounces, and you can get all the way around the planet that way.
And
Okay.
so the people during the Sagal fire who were trying to talk to anyone during the disaster, what frequencies were they using? What?
They were what's called UHF, VHF. It's above. Typically, it's around. What is the frequencies now? I'm not sure. My mind just went blank. It's called 2 meters.
Okay, it's gonna go over my
It's
head
way,
probably
yeah,
by
it's
2
way
meters.
it's way above the HF band.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's line of sight only.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay, that's why you have a repeater on the mountain, because you have line of sight. Now you might have stuff in the way, like some trees or the building walls, but you still might get through because it's direct.
Okay.
Okay, it's where but the signal might be too weak if you get too many trees, right?
Gotcha.
So it's a line of sight as the frequencies are high. In the HF bands, at night on the AM radio, you could get Boston, right?
Okay.
Why? Because it bounces off the ionosphere and comes back down, and you can hear it. What do they call them? There was a name for those stations that I forgot now, but there were certain stations in the country that were very powerful. They were granted clear channel at night by the FCC because their signal could go a long way. Excuse me. So they would bounce off, and you could hear Boston, Chicago, San Francisco. Some of the major cities had these stations where people around the country could hear them at night, and that's because of the same effect. It's a reflection off the ionosphere.
Gotcha.
Basically, what I decided to do was solve that problem of them. How would they getting
Yeah.
them to be able to use those frequencies without having to learn Morse code. So the way we did that was we had the machine do the Morse code for them, and now it's sort of like doing texting over the air. It's
Okay.
not exactly like that, of course, because texting is to a particular person. That you have their phone number or something, so you can text to them. But over the air, it's to anybody that happens to hear, happens to have a radio somewhere in the world that you happen to pick up their signal, and you can talk back and forth to them with Morse code. So it's like texting because you're using a keyboard on our end, and you're reading text off of a screen.
Gotcha.
So we invented the machines to do that, and that's what we've been
solve this
doing.
problem.
To solve
Okay.
that
Is that
problem.
what this fun device you brought is?
Yes, and this
Show
is
me.
This is
Show
an
and tell.
example. I just wanted to, so you knew what Morse code was. I'm going to turn this around so everybody can see. But this is one of our units we prefer for an emergency radio because it's all in one. It's got the batteries in it, It's got everything in it except the antenna.
Gotcha.
So it's very easy to set up because you don't have to do anything
It
but
looks
turn
like,
it on.
yeah, it just looks like a little miniature
Like a
computer
little
keyboard.
computer. That's right.
How on earth does it transmit Morse code?
So I'm going to press call,
Okay.
which is I'm going to call a general call. Is called calling CQ, and that's what Morse code sounds like. That's
Okay.
saying CQ, and it's just a way of getting your station out there. So now if somebody's tuning around and they happen to come on your frequency and they hear CQ, calling CQ, then they'll stop and then they'll wait for you to finish the call, and then they will at that point answer you. And now just because they can hear you doesn't mean you can hear them. So they try.
Okay.
I'm going to now tell it that's enough by pressing the button again. And so that's how it basically works. You just basically go on the air, you select a frequency that nobody's using, and you make a call, or you find somebody that's calling, and then you answer. And a lot of times that works, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes their signal's a lot stronger, but they can't hear you for whatever reason.
Okay.
But basically that's how it works. Anyway, that's what we developed.
Tell me about the difference between this and traditional emergency response devices.
Okay, so typically when there's a term for that, emergency response in terms of radio, is called EMCOM, emergency radio communications, emergency communications. It's generally government oriented. Because it's to support the government response. Okay, so like in our county, we have an emergency response group that's responsible for handling an emergency with communication. So everybody that's involved, the different the police and the hospitals and whatever, all the different people that have to be involved in a response to an emergency, they are able to be connected because who knows what the rest of the communication that they normally use is doing. And amateur radio operators support that with different networks that they set up. Aries is one of them. There's a lot of people here in our county that are involved in that. But it's essentially for the purpose of supporting official function, official communication, to support the official response. The problem is that the community at large, they want to, if there's an emergency going on, there are other people in their family or friends, in other parts of the country are concerned about, well, how are you doing? Are you okay, right? And they want to communicate.
Yeah.
And they go to the county to try to get communication. And of course, the county said, they're already overloaded. They're already out of control. The county told me that the first thing, the communication people on the county told me the first thing that goes out is communications.
Yeah.
So emergency communications.
During disaster.
Yeah, during a disaster. It just goes bonkers. Even though they've actually planned it out and they practice every week, they still it gets overloaded immediately.
Gotcha.
So the county would like to have a situation where the people that want to communicate, that's non-official, not with them.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one of the things that we've talked with them about is setting up a program to encourage use of personal what we call personal emergency communications systems, so that they can provide for a neighborhood, for example, the ability to communicate outside the area.
So anybody can use these tools, an individual, community groups, our community center.
Well, yes and no.
Okay. Tell me about it.
You do have to be licensed to operate one of these during non-emergency times.
Okay.
During an actual emergency, anyone can use a radio if they know how to use it. Okay. So it's a trick in a sense because we actually have a program we're planning on where we teach you how to use this without a license, so that if an emergency happens, you know how to use it.
Gotcha. So tell me a little bit about like what that program would look like.
Well, basically, you have to learn how to operate the unit, and the problem comes in is when you want to actually go back and forth between two people. So right now, you can't do that without. You can't go on the air. You actually can't transmit into an antenna and radiate radio frequencies legally. So you have to have an amateur radio operator come and be there to help you to be there as the operator.
Okay.
Okay. What we're working towards is remote control. So if I have remote control over this unit, you can operate it. I'm actually operating it and allowing you to type or to speak, whatever the unit does. But as long as I'm the guy that controls transmit, receive, that's legal.
Because you're a licensed operator.
Yeah, so I can do that. Remotely. That's what we're working towards. So you can actually, over the internet, train people where they can actually operate the rig, or sort of pseudo operate it. You're giving them the opportunity to pretend. It's kind of like I'm standing here and you can push the button type of thing, but I have to have the control, so I can turn you off. I can disconnect if you're getting out of control. So it's
like a conduit. You would be the operator would be a conduit between the device and the person who's trying to send.
Yeah, it's essentially as long as I meet the obligations of the licensing authority, which is the Federal Communications Commission, and what their regulations for remote control. And being there for non-licensed operators, then you can do that. So that's going to take some additional functionality that we're working on adding, so that we can do that kind of training without somebody actually being physically present.
Gotcha.
Right now, you have to have a local ham club person come and help you to test your antenna, actually transmit, and do a little practice on the air. And that's where it's the hardest right now to do that, because of making schedules work. But learning everything else about the radio and how to turn it on and how to operate it you can do without anybody present. It's just that one step, which is the actual transmit.
But to clarify, in the event of disaster or emergency, it's not illegal to use it.
That's right. It's totally illegal for anyone to use any radio.
Yeah.
If you're on a ship and you go into the radio room and the radio operator fell overboard, you can grab the microphone and find a push button and call
you won't be
emergency.
Arrested when you arrive back at shore.
And here what we do is CQ Mayday, CQ Mayday, CQ Mayday. And there's other ways you can do it, or you can use SOS, of course, but CQ Mayday is what we usually use.
Gotcha. Obviously, we're talking because of the recent tragedies that occurred in Texas.
Right.
And we want to, as a community, be more aware and be more proactive about responding in the event of an emergency. Part of the vision of our community center is to be a community center where disaster relief can occur. Right? Gathering Red Cross and Salvation Army and all types of nonprofits and disaster relief organizations to be able to do what they do in one space. And this is, I think, a really great part of emergency response is the communications aspect of it. From your perspective, what are the biggest communication gaps that occur during disaster?
Well, it's basically the community at large is experiencing all kinds of issues, but the people in charge of, say, the county or city don't know about it, right? And what the way the city is set up is they actually have people that go out and set up stations at different locations. The goal is to find out what's going on. So their goal is to find out what's going on. The people where it's going on, they know what's going on, but the city doesn't know, right? And so there's the gap. It's always that gap. Is that if there's an emergency, like if you have a fire or you have a flood, for example, so there's certain places where it's really bad and people's lives are at stake. Other places, it's just getting wet. Well, where are the people's lives at stake?
Yeah.
You don't know, because here you are in this giant city, right? And there's flood everywhere, but it's not dangerous except in some places. And that's an example of the gap. Is that I'm in my house, and people across the street need to be rescued, and I need to be rescued. I'm further up the hill, so it doesn't bother me as much. I need to contact somebody and say these people need to get taken out quick, or
And
they're going to die.
That's where this would come in.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, do you think that you could start a program like that here at the EnVision Center?
Well, I can't personally, of course, but I think I could help and get, point the way. I mean, basically, there's some technical issues that need to be solved. There needs to be an antenna on the roof, for example. I don't know, that's not necessarily a big thing, but It might be a big thing. There needs to be someplace set aside where you have equipment that can be used. Then you have a training. And ideally, what you would really like to do, I think, is to offer training to the community, so that it wouldn't just be the EnVision Center has a communication facility that people here know how to operate. Somebody knows how to operate. At least one person has a license, and the other people know how to operate it, because he trains them and he sits there with them, so they actually know from experience, right? But then think about having training in the community, so that you can get you get basically licensing classes, get people licensed. Every month there's testing at the library, and so you can get, if you've studied, and there's online courses which are very good. And there's lots of other written booklets and stuff. It's not that hard to get this license. It's really not. You can do it in a day, as long as you're awake. If you're awake, you can do it. It's not hard. There's a lot of, information, like rules that you have to follow, that you have to know about. Okay, so you learn a bunch of that kind of stuff. There's a little bit of technical stuff, but not much. You can memorize the answers. It's just A, B, C, D, which is, it's not like write down an essay. It's right?
I think that would be a great program to be offered for our community here.
It would, I think.
Yeah. So how do you see that playing out in the next several years? Is that something that you have a vision for in the future, or is it something that an external organization would come in and start up?
It's a good question. I certainly, at this point in our growth, we're a pretty young company. We're, what would you say, 200% overloaded all the time.
Yeah, I think you said you've only been in operation for 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're in a situation where we're working on developing some really amazing, better technology than exists today. Which is important for our future development as a company and for growth. And we anticipate actually significant growth once we get this done. But it's a lot of work between now and then. I don't, until we are in a more a stronger position from a point of view of resources, I can only see supporting some effort to do it.
Yeah.
At some point in the future, it might quite possibly be that we'll be strong enough to have the extra resources that can, do it. But I don't think the EnVision Center should wait for that.
Yeah, gotcha.
Because I think that you don't know when the next emergency is going to be. But when it happens, you don't want to say, darn, I wish we had done that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. It just came to my mind that you guys are inventing cutting edge technology that involves Morse code, and I never thought I would hear those in the same sentence.
Very good. That was a good sentence.
Morse code and cutting edge technology.
Well, we're in the process of actually rebranding the company, and we have some engineering happening on the East Coast, actually West Virginia. On Morse code, future uses of Morse code, where it becomes totally digital, a much more powerful capabilities than Morse code today. Morse code has a very unique capability because it's just a single signal that goes on and off. Okay, because of that, it's very narrow band. It can actually get through noise. when other signals can't.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting you bring that up, because I was going to ask you, what do you think the future of this technology and you guys as a company, where do you think it's going?
It's interesting because, when we started the company, I think the general feeling in the industry was Morse code is dead, long live Morse code, right? Morse code interest was dying out. But for whatever reason, including us, I mean, I'm sure we're part of it, but certainly not the whole thing. I don't know why Morse code started getting more interest in the amateur radio community. By the way, amateur radio, you asked what that is. It's just basically a group of people that have taken it on as a hobby, and they get licensed, and then they do all kinds of stuff. I mean, you have people that build equipment like this, but not to manufacture for other people, but to build for themselves. There's people that do stuff like moon bounce. I mean, a lot of the technology that is used industrially today was invented in amateur radio, by amateur radio. The purpose of amateur radio from the government's point of view is to have a hotbed of creation. And a lot of technologies have come out of amateur radio because it is that. You have the ability to create stuff. Like that's what we're doing right now. The future of Morse code is going to be something that we develop. It's not going to happen by itself. And there's nobody out there in the industry that's going to just say, oh, let's come up with a new system around Morse code. Okay, it's going to be people like us who say, what can we do with Morse code? And the thing that's cool about it, every digital mode that's out there, you can't use it unless you get a higher license. Okay, this system that we're going to come out with allows this lowest level license called a technician class license. That person can use it because they're allowed to use Morse code on the HF bands. So it gives you a very powerful digital mode that they can use because it's still using Morse code. It's a very interesting solution.
Yeah, that is. So, in closing, is there anything that you haven't shared that you think would be of interest for us to know about PrepComm and about radio, Morse code, amateur radio in general?
Well, I think only that I think it's a fascinating world. Literally, there's so many different subsections of interest. I mean, in ham radio that it's hard to even fathom. If you go to a show, an event, they call them ham fests. You would, it blows your mind all the different kinds of things people are into that have some radio function involved, or that I like putting up a balloon. Our club here just put up a balloon that they tracked it as it went around the Earth, and because it had little radios in it that would, on a certain frequency, they could track it. And I'm not interested in putting balloons up, but they were fascinated, and they spent a lot of effort getting that balloon up and then tracking it as it was going across the Pacific and so forth. It was like, okay, so that's an example. You just don't know what people are going to come up with, but they're doing all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah.
So amateur radio is a hobby that, to some extent, went out of favor when the cell phone was invented, because now you can talk to people, on your cell phone. However, the cell phone is limited because you only can talk to people whose phone number you know and they know you. But on ham radio, you can talk to people you don't know that they're somewhere. When you make a call, you don't know where the radio waves are going. They're going somewhere. And it could be in Moscow. It could be in Lebanon. It could be in South America. It could be in Japan. It could be in Canada. You just don't know where it's going. And then somebody just happens to have their radio tuned, and they're tuning right by your frequency just as you're calling, right? And so now you have this person you're talking to who, is in some country. You find out with their country and so forth from their call sign, and you have a conversation with them. Now, some amateurs just want to make the contact. Just I had this contact, but other people like me, I like to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So there's two different approaches there. But both of them are valid. There's nothing wrong with collecting contacts, but then I like to talk to people.
And so this can be used even if cell towers go down.
Absolutely.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the only thing that can be used when everything else goes out. The one possibility beyond is a satellite phone, but a satellite phone has a similar problem to a telephone company. It's not unlimited. When a company decides to offer we call it satellite service, they buy a certain bandwidth from the provider, the people who own the satellite, and that's a certain number of lines. Okay, a certain number of telephone lines, essentially. And so naturally, just like a regular telephone company, you can overload that by too many people calling at the same time. That can happen. And the other problem is if there's anything like a national emergency, you may have the government take over those frequencies.
Gotcha.
Or the military take over those frequencies. And of course, in an EMP situation, either from the sun, coronal mass injection, or from a nuclear weapon at high altitude, it'll take out some of the satellites, and then your phone doesn't work. That phone is great for people you know about, and you know, like if you have your kids in Boston and you're here, then you can talk to your kids, assuming that the channel is open, right?
Yeah.
That's nice, but what happens if there's an emergency? Who do you call? You don't have the emergency numbers handy. There's no telephone book. Remember the telephone books? They were as big as this, They don't have those anymore. So that's the weakness of a phone, is that you have to know the phone number of who you're calling.
Yeah.
And with the amateur radio, you don't have to. Yeah. You can make a call, emergency, somebody will pick it up, and they'll know where you are, and they'll then call out or use their phone, or they'll use to call out again. So it's kind of pass the message along. That's how that works. It's a much broader coverage than you get with a phone.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just a very significant alternative to common communication devices, especially in rural areas.
Yes.
Where sometimes you don't have cell service. So,
right.
I think if there's anything else you want to say.
Well, I was going to say walkie-talkies are still useful.
Yeah.
For example, locally, you can easily find a place driving around where cell phone service isn't there because you're between two mountains or something.
Yeah.
And you have a flat tire. Okay, or a blowout or something, and you need help. Well, you get out your walkie-talkie, and it happens to contact to some, repeater nearby, and you can get help, right? So it has a use. There's no question about it. If you're a local person, you have a communication system. Let's say we had one here. You would still want to use walkie-talkies to talk to people if they were going to go out and find out what's going on to report back here. That would be the way to do it. You'd have that frequencies are good for that, high frequencies, ultra high frequencies. You can use the walkie-talkie to report into the local station. The local station then calls out over the mountains, as it were.
Gotcha.
So both are useful. There's another communication that's very useful for keeping in touch amongst a group. Let's say, for example, a church has a bunch of congregation that's spread around the whole area here, and they come to a church every Sunday. Like in here, there's a church right down the hall. How do they stay in contact when everything goes down? Well, there's a thing called Mesh Network. Meshtastic is the name of the company that does it, and it's these little $100 devices you can get, under $100 devices, which can get you onto the mesh. And it's unlicensed, but it's only short distance. But because there's enough people in this area and Sandpoint, you can connect out a fairly good distance. So it's just another tool for emergency response. So you have the local group that wants to stay connected to self-support each other.
Yeah.
And then you've got the issue of I need to talk to people outside this area to report problems that aren't being dealt with, or nobody knows how to deal with here, or I need to talk to my family. to tell them I'm okay, or please send some whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So there's different levels of emergency communication that are important to know about and to be set up for.
Yeah, I think that awareness is really neat, and yeah, being set up for it, that would be the goal. Well, thank you so much, Eric, for coming and talking with us and sharing with us what you do at PrepComm and just discussing the topic. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. For more information, you can go to CRECidaho.com. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you again soon.